Welcome to another episode of Talking Nerdy in the Bedroom with
Corey,
KJ,
and Mike.
Today we are talking about Star Trek, something that I myself am not overly familiar with. I've seen the latest J.J. Abrams movies, although he didn't do the third one. Lin something? I don't know.
yeah. No, yeah.
But Corey has seen all of them, most of them.
Yeah, I think I've seen most of it. There's the new series.
Like all of the older stuff, the shows, the movies, all that.
Yeah. I've
Really?
seen it all at some point or another.
The TV show?
What,
The
the
Shatner?
original series?
Oh, the whole thing?
Oh, yeah.
There are 8.
I don't remember that as much as I do, like, Next Generation, but...
Well,
yeah.
there are 8 live-action TV.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The newer series they have one called Star Trek Discovery, which I think I've not seen the third season.
Aren't they up to 5? It started in 2017.
Star Trek Discovery?
Started in
I don't
2017.
think so. I think it's just 3 seasons right now.
Third season.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Which
then we've
is
got
like a...
Picard that's out. Strange New Worlds.
Picard, yeah. I've seen most of Picard. I haven't finished season 2 yet. And then the Strange New Worlds that just came out, I've been watching.
Those are the only 3 currently out, right?
Well, and then they have an animated Star Trek, The Lower Decks. Yeah, which is great.
I love it.
It's so funny.
It's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. It's spoof off. The Next Generation had one a while back, an episode called The Lower Decks, which focused on not the main crew. Because you always see the main crew, and then there's thousands of other people on the ship.
The ensigns that have to crawl through the Jeffrey tubes and, you know, the janitors of the ship.
Right.
I think most TV shows usually eventually do that after they get 5-6 seasons in. There's always an episode about the B, C, D characters that they want to try to show you.
Yeah, and so they took that idea and made a whole animated series that's kind of comical.
Is it a comedy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's supposed to be a comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That it's not just a spoof like, what is it, The Orville, which is a spoof off of Star Trek, but not Star Trek.
So I really think Orville was sold to Fox as like, we're going to do a spoof on Star Trek, and then Seth MacFarlane just loves Star Trek, and it's just become like an actual show. It's still got funny moments, but it's a lot less comedy and a lot more like drama at times. So I like the Orville. It's basically Star Trek.
I was going to say, that's
Whereas
surprising.
Lower Decks is comedy for the sake of comedy.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I figured the
It's
Orville was,
purpose.
with being, what's his face that you just said, Todd McFarlane.
Seth MacFarlane.
That's him.
Todd McFarlane is the guy who created Spawn. So
I mean, they're like the same guy. One likes musical, one writes comics. Same person.
I guess.
So there are 13 movies as well. Have you seen all 13 movies?
Well, yes, because I was like, how do you get to 13? And then I remembered, so Next Generation had a lot of movies. Like they had Star Trek Nemesis, which starred Tom Hardy as a clone of a Patrick Stewart. That was a pretty cool one.
I guess
that was the last one.
That was the last what?
Of the Next Generation movies.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. They had First Contact, which was one of my favorites. The
Borg goes back in time.
Yeah, and they chase a Borg ship back in time, and basically you get to see when we learned warp drive and the Vulcans come. So it's kind of cool.
Right. You have Earth as like third world. It's torn itself apart. Very dystopian.
It's like they just ended the Third World War or something like that.
They're all like refugees.
Yeah.
Which isn't the first movie.
No.
No, the first movie, at least from Next Generation, is called Generations.
Yeah, and that's where they pull back William Shatner, who played Kirk, and he meets Patrick Stewart.
So it's interesting to me, looking at the timeline, is that you have these series. Granted, the first series only went like 3 or 4 seasons, and then they started doing movies. And the Next Generation went a lot longer than that. They went 7 years and then started doing movies. Yeah. They didn't do movies in between when they were doing the show. They were all after.
Yeah, I think they started, I mean, it's called The Next Generation, but it really was a next generation to like the fans of Star Trek. And then they built, I mean, then, you know, you go on season after season, and then they really didn't have any other expansion but movies. Yeah. I mean, it just got so big. I mean, the Next Generation was just wide. It's probably the most popular.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I would say easily, especially with how many seasons it ran.
Right.
I will say a lot of fans, like really hardcore Trekkies, say Deep Space Nine is like maybe the best, but I disagree. Next Generation's like my favorite. I actually like Star Trek Enterprise, which has Scott Bakula. That I like more than Voyager and Deep Space Nine, which is gonna like drive some people nuts.
See,
who
I
actually like
liked
Star Trek.
Voyager.
Yeah.
Get Janeway as a strong captain figure.
I like Tuvok.
Tuvok
was a
good.
good character. Harry Kim was good.
Is that when we meet Seven of Nine?
Yeah.
Is through Voyager?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she goes on and now she's part of Picard's crew in Picard.
Yeah.
Well, this is all Greek to me. But do you think that they're with this new it's quite popular on Paramount Plus. That's why they keep doing all these new shows. Like they did either Discovery or Picard. I think it's Discovery.
Well,
and because of Discovery, they did Strange New Worlds.
Well, because of Discovery, they probably did Picard, and then because of,
like CBS had the rights to Star Trek, is it right?
Yeah,
well, Paramount.
And then
Paramount
and now it it
has.
used to be CBS All Access, now it's Paramount Plus.
Yeah, but Paramount is the one that put out all these movies to begin with,
Right.
like since the originals. It's always been a Paramount Pictures movie.
Yeah.
And now it's just all merged into one platform, which is where everything is now currently, which is great if you're a Trekkie, unlike me, where I can just go and slowly watch and go, that's not for me. Like, I didn't mind the newer movies, the J.J. Abrams ones, but going back and trying to watch, because I remember my mom and my grandparents both liked either the original series or the Next Generation. They liked that stuff. It wasn't for me growing up. Like, there was nothing that interested me. And maybe it's the fact that I like long storytelling, and most of those are episodic.
Yep.
Where you're kind of done in one episode. Or if you get like a 2 or 3 parter, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
I like long stories that are drawn out the entire season that give you kind of like a big payoff.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is they're definitely episodic, but they have like background stories that keep popping up. So
Sure,
like
but
with
nothing
you
that you
Picard,
absolutely have to
Voyager
watch.
trying to get home from the Delta Quadrant this whole time, and
Yeah.
like you have like little things here and there, how they're getting closer, how they're gonna do it.
But I look at like Law and Order in the sense of you could go watch any episode of Law and Order. There are things that have happened that got them to this point, but you can kind of watch an episode and not really need to know all the background. And that was kind of their point behind most of the TV shows back then, was you should be able to just sit down, watch an episode, and not have to have all this history. It wasn't until the 90s, 2000s where they started having longer storytelling, which is obviously when we all grew up, but I kind of fell in love with that type of storytelling. It's one of the reasons I like movies. You have an hour or two, and now TV shows have started actually putting in the effort and doing 8, 10, 12, 13 episodes rather than 22 episodes where 10 of them are filler. You just get a solid 8, 12 episodes of solid acting, solid performances in one cohesive story.
So you would probably be more likely to like Picard or Discovery because they aren't as episodic. But like Strange New Worlds is episodic, but it's kind of like a throwback to how the original series was.
Apparently a lot of, because when I knew that we were doing this podcast, I looked up that one specifically because I knew I was going to at least watch the first episode, where people were raving about it because that's what it's calling back to. It's back to the roots of Star Trek.
I'm really loving it so far. So
Really?
the first episode I didn't really love, but the second and the third I've really liked.
I feel like the second episode was worse than the first episode. Like, you have to try to move a comet using music, and somehow it's alive and it knew that it wasn't gonna hit the planet.
I mean, it's...
Oh, I'm so glad I didn't watch the second
Oh, dude,
episode.
I mean, it was more that other beings could communicate through sound and music opposed to like written word,
I guess.
which isn't like a new concept in sci-fi, and
Weren't
it's
we
not
just
even a new
doing that
concept.
with Doctor Strange? All of us had a problem with the battles with the music, and now you're okay with it defeating a comet.
Well, it's one of the reasons that when they sent that probe into space, the United States, they included samples of music in case alien species that ever got it, spoke through song.
Music, yeah.
So, I guess my biggest issue with Star Trek is following the timeline. Like, is Strange New Worlds in the same timeline as the movies?
Strange New World is the beginning before the original series.
Okay, so Ahura is an ensign, right?
Yeah.
And Spock is 10 years
Science officer.
of a long time, quite a while, right? So there's a big age gap difference between the two.
Well, so the original series with Captain Kirk, Captain Pike, who's in Strange New Worlds, was the captain in the first episode, and then Kirk takes over for him, just like in the movies with J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
So the crew was already established. Uhura, Spock.
Don't we have a different pilot though?
Yeah. In this one they have a different pilot. So, but we don't know. Down the road they might bring in Chekhov. But Chekhov was, if I remember right, in the original series, because that one's been a while, he was like a young ensign when he joined.
Right.
Like he was the young guy. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it because you get a lot of space where they can continue that storyline.
Do you think their plan is to end where the original series starts? Or do you think they're going to keep going?
My guess would be that they're going to, like, whenever they do their series finale, it will be a handoff to Kirk.
So it's like a prequel that's going to end right when the other one began.
Now, who's the ensign Kirk? Is that that's Kirk's dad?
I don't know.
Because he keeps saying back, like, how's the family?
It shouldn't be Kirk's dad, because...
No, it's Kirk himself.
No, it's definitely not.
I'm pretty sure they said they cast that guy as James T. Kirk.
But his first name's not James.
Yeah, no,
I thought that too when they said it. I was just like...
Because I was confused about that too, and I honestly haven't looked it up yet. But his dad's name is George.
That's not his name, though.
I know. That's what I'm saying, so I don't know who it is. Uncle Kirk?
Elmer Kirk.
Yeah.
Elmer Kirk?
I don't know.
That's too funny.
But, and I think that was kind of like a reference point because, or like a, Easter egg, because it tells, like, they're like, oh, get Ensign Kirk up here, and everybody's like, oh, it's going to be James T. Kirk. And then they're like, oh, my name's Frank Kirk, or whatever it is.
So apparently they've cast Paul Wesley to be James T. Kirk in the second season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
That's Vampire Diaries guy.
Yes, that guy. He's going to play Kirk. So I guess, it was his dad, cousin, relative of a Kirk, but it's probably just an homage to the fact that the Kirks are in the fleet.
At least in the J.J. Abrams storyline, his dad didn't serve with Captain Pike, but Captain Pike was like a fan of his dad's because his dad died saving a bunch of people. So I don't know who this guy is. Uncle, cousin,
elder brother to future Captain James T. Kirk.
Oh, that's
George Samuel Sam Kirk.
That he never mentions.
Oh, and they call him Sam.
Samuel Kirk. That's what it was.
They probably do that because if they said George, we'd all be thinking it was the dad. But
of the jungle? No? Okay.
Yeah.
That's just
George.
Ugh. It's a bad joke.
These were bad shows.
No.
Yeah, I might get hate for it. It's not my cup of tea. What I will talk about, because I just rewatched them, are the new J.J. Abrams movies. I thought it was a good introduction with Chris Pine and everybody else from the first movie. I thought it had a pretty good story with reimagining the past being redone with the time travel aspect with the new Spock and the old Spock. I thought that was an interesting way to do it, where you basically do a full reboot while still acknowledging the past. I thought that was an interesting way to do it, and I thought it had the legs, which obviously it did because it made a lot of money, to them to do a second one and then even a third one and then potentially a fourth one. So they definitely put forth a good amount of characters and a good story that some people are at least following.
Well, and I think the best thing about it is the cast they got really portrayed the characters well. Like Carl Urban, who plays Bones, is probably like the most dead-on ringer for Leonard McCoy. Yeah. Who's Bones in the original series. But like James T. Kirk, was it Chris Pine?
Chris Pine.
Great.
Zachary Quinto.
Zach
for
Quinto,
Spock.
Yep, Spock was great.
Yeah.
Uhura was okay. I mean,
Of Zoe
Saldana.
Yeah.
And then Chekhov, the young guy who passed
Anton
away.
Yelchin.
Yeah, and he passed away, but he was great as Chekhov too.
Yeah, I really liked him as an actor in general.
So if they go to a fourth movie, what do we think we're going to be doing as far as replacing him? Or
they said they're not going to replace him.
No?
They'll write him off in the sense of he left or something like that, but they won't replace him in the show. They've already gone on record with that.
That's
but I don't
good.
know I don't know what they'll do with that space. But it is technically a brand new timeline, so they can kind of do whatever they want.
That's my biggest problem with Star Trek is the infinite timeline.
Didn't we just have the MCU where that's all we have? Our timelines?
I know, and it's so hard to follow the infinite timelines. So Star Trek does it ad nauseum. Like every show is like you have Next Generation and Voyager on the same timeline, and that's like it. And even then,
the original one and Next Generation aren't they the same timeline? Just years.
But then
later?
Generation splits like 5 times.
The original series, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Enterprise are all on the same timeline. Having said that, in most of those series, at some point they do travel in time or something,
right? And change the timeline.
It's not big change. It's not big changes. Like these new movies and the new shows, they literally have changed like drastic.
Well,
things.
they're a reboot. That's
why. In Picard,
I get that, but I'm just saying.
Picard Q literally changes the timeline altogether.
Yeah, but that's just him messing with Picard. He'll go back, I'm sure. I haven't seen the rest of season 2, so I can't say.
Right, so if it goes back, it still changes the timeline. Like you've altered reality.
Well, that's just what Q does. He just has a fun time.
I know. You just have this being, this galactic being that's just like, yeah. So I don't like the way you're doing things. Poof.
Yeah. It's fun.
Well, at least with the reboot movies, I know why they redid the timeline. It's to get in newer fans, so you don't need all this 30 years history of
you want to make it fresh and new. I can understand that, but like the writers for Star Trek are just like, you know what? We want something new timeline.
Nah, I don't think it's that drastic a difference. At least in the original
Discovery
series stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna change it up. Oh, let's just move 1,000 years in the future.
Yeah, well, Discovery. I said the newer ones, sure, but like the Next Generation and stuff, they don't.
Hang on a second. If Discovery is just 1,000 years in the future, what timeline did that change?
They jumped to a complete other universe.
No. He means like season 1, they're at a certain time, and then they go 1,000 years in the future.
Oh, it's not the same characters, or those characters?
No, it's
the same characters. They jump into the future.
They're having this battle, and they're just like, we can't have them take over our ship. We're gonna jump into the future.
Me, I don't think that's necessarily changing the timeline. That's just them jumping 1,000 years in the future. Changing the timeline would be changing something going back, and now everything is different.
Right? They do that in season 2.
Oh, okay.
When they jump into a complete another universe and then jump back.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, they definitely did that then.
All right, so you've... Mike, people can't see where I'm pointing. Mike, you've seen a handful of series. What was your favorite series?
I mean, Next Generation is by far my favorite series just because of the depth that they go into. Yeah. And Patrick Stewart is... hands down best captain-esque, best part of Star Trek. However, I do like Voyager because I grew up watching it alongside with Enterprise. I like the story behind it. I like the fact that they were stranded in the Delta Quadrant, using, what they had to get back, meeting new characters, new worlds along the way. You introduce the Borg. Borg are by far my favorite.
Well, they don't introduce them. They're in Next Generation.
Well, true, but you see like the Delta Quadrant Borg.
Yeah. It definitely delves heavy on the Borg.
Right.
So, Next Generation is by far my favorite. I liked Enterprise, which was pretty much everybody's least favorite, but I liked it because it takes place before... It's basically, KJ, for your information too, before we've like we've just joined with Vulcans, and it's before we've met like Klingons and all the races.
Right, it's before the Klingon War.
Is that the show that had the girl with the thing over her eye?
No, that's Voyager. That's 7 of 9.
That's Voyager. Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about the little...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
The
7
Rock
of 9.
was on that show. Just saying.
Was he really?
All I know. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many celebrities who have guest starred on Star Trek throughout the years. It's crazy. And that got their start, like as, you know, an ensign who got killed on a planet or something. But anyway, so yeah, Enterprise is cool because you kind of get to, it's the first time we've left Earth on a serious mission to like explore space. Scott Bakula from Quantum Leap is the captain. And it's just kind of interesting because it's like actually feels more like they're exploring an unknown opposed to like, hey, we're going to the Klingon planet, which we've been to 50 times.
Also has the worst intro song out of all of the shows, out of any show, I think, possible. It sounds like
it's been a long time.
If you weren't watching the TV and if you didn't know that was the intro, you'd think it'd be like the intro to Family Matters or something, like some kind of like
or
at
like
home.
So you're telling me I would have got my hopes up and then been instantly
Have you heard the intro sort of?
No, I just would have liked watching Family Matters.
It's been a long road.
Yeah, from here to there.
Yeah.
I liked it. I don't know. It is one I skipped after a while, but
I skipped it the first time I watched it.
Oh, I didn't hate it. I thought it was kind of a cool, like the video in the background, because they basically show all of the U.S. enterprises that have ever been, not spaceships even, just like the first...
the sailing ship.
Yeah, the sailing ship, and then the first like spacecraft that they had, and they just keep showing...
Well, you have the shuttle, right? You go from like the actual schooner, water sailing ship, to the shuttle, to Enterprise 1,
and I think that's why I liked the lyrics for it, because it's basically saying we're showing you how far mankind has come, and that's what the song is saying.
I'm already bored. Does that help you? Does that tell you anything? I have a question.
You would like to T'Pol?
I'd like it. I'd like none of it. All these new shows are all premiering on Paramount Plus.
Yep.
Are we thinking that's because they can't hold a candle to other terrible shows that are on network television? Or do you think that's just them having a selling point? Hey, we want you to go subscribe for Paramount.
They're trying to get you on the app.
It's a selling point because like Halo is on Paramount only.
But they've got 3 different ones. You'd think one of them would be on like primetime TV to try to bring in network dollars.
Yeah, I think they are using it to... It's kind of like Netflix. Netflix had a bunch of shows that draw people in, and now not so much.
Netflix has never had network TV. Paramount and CBS have.
I know, but if you wouldn't subscribe to Netflix unless they had original content that was good, right?
Sure.
So that's what Paramount Plus, if they want people to subscribe to it, they need to come up with original content just for that.
There's 3 different Star Trek shows. Wouldn't you assume they would have taken the chance with one of them? There's been a bunch of shows on CBS that they pulled off of CBS to put on All Access or Paramount Plus now because they wanted to get the subscriber count higher.
I guess the real question is what would they get for ratings on TV?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Right. So I feel like they're going to put those shows... You know, I guess I don't even really know what's on CBS on cable anymore.
NCIS.
But... Yeah, I was like...
So they're going to leave the longest running shows on there, and they're going to put the newest content on their streaming. So, like, you think about what demographic has apps, you know, on their TVs. Right. The younger generations, those are going to be the shows that they're going to be, you know, targeting, like Halo. You know, my grandmother probably has never played Halo in her life, and I can't, you know...
She hasn't lived.
Yeah, exactly, right. So...
She could jump in the Warthog, it'd be fine.
But, you know, like, you know, people that are our age and our generation, you know, grew up playing Halo on original Xbox in all of its 128-bit glory, or whatever it is.
Oh, Xbox was 128-bit, but...
Is that what it is? I don't know.
No, Xbox had more power than that.
Yeah.
28-bit is
200-bit.
300-bit.
But I'm just
might have even had a
surprised
megabit. I don't know.
I'm just surprised they didn't put something like a Picard, which has a big name actor in it, on TV to try to get those ratings and get the money.
I don't see the upside for them because they want people to come see, like, to subscribe to Paramount Plus.
Well, sure, because it's guaranteed money every single
month. And other
month.
than Halo and Star Trek, what big properties do they have on there?
The Challenge.
I want to hit you.
It is a big one. It's been on for, I don't know, they're on like season 40 or something.
Yeah. Well, no. But is that on cable as well?
So certain times on cable, but they have a specific one that's only on Paramount Plus.
Okay. Because like Survivor is another one I go to Paramount to watch, but at the same time,
that's on CBS though.
It's on CBS. Yeah,
right.
That's my point.
Well, that was my point. I was surprised it's not on there first, and then like eventually after it airs, it then gets put on Paramount Plus.
I think it's
maybe they
really
don't get the
just
room for it.
I mean, they definitely have the room. They cancel so many shows every year because nothing's connected.
So the other thing too is some of those new shows are pretty close to an hour long, right?
Yeah.
So like you'd have to have a set run time.
Yeah, it'd be 44 minutes, and they'd have to cut stuff more than they probably want to.
Right, and I feel like the shows like on CBS don't have like a set run time. Like some of them are like 55 minutes
on CBS,
on the CBS All Access.
Oh, on
Paramount
All Access.
Paramount Plus. Okay, yeah. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. Most things on that, like Netflix is the same thing, Disney Plus, it's whatever runtime they want to do.
Right.
It's going to be roughly 40 minutes. Sometimes
so
it's 49.
that gives the producers of these shows more leeway to make the story better because they can put just the information that they want, more or less, per episode.
So that's probably the best explanation that I've heard so far. I do still think it's about subscribers, but like for me, if someone said, well, it's because we want to be able to tell our story without having to cut to 22 minutes or 44 minutes.
Right.
Correct. We don't want to have to cut certain things that we feel are important. This is why we want to be on a streaming service. And so you can be a little bit more edgy on a streaming service than you can be on regular TV as well. I'm just surprised they haven't tried one of them. Whether it failed or not, I don't know. I'm just surprised they haven't at least tried.
I'm not as surprised, I guess, because that just seems like what all these streaming services are doing is they're keeping the properties that they know people will subscribe to watch. Like I like Survivor, but I wouldn't subscribe to I wouldn't subscribe to Paramount Plus if like the reason was so I could watch Survivor.
See, I think some people would, but I agree that I think that's like an older person show now.
Yeah.
And they probably wouldn't. They're the ones that are going to sit down every Wednesday, Thursday night, whenever it's on at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever, and sit there and watch for an hour.
Yeah. Watch commercials.
Yeah, but those are slowly going away now with more and more people cutting cable and just having these streaming services. So it's going to be an interesting decade, the next decade or so, of figuring out, does cable completely go away? And then we're just left with these, which could be a good or a bad thing.
Would have been nicer if it was just like 2 or 3, though, instead of everybody making a streaming.
Well, again, that's why I always, what do? You guys have access to certain of my streamings. I have access to a couple of yours.
Nonsense. Netflix, this is a lie. We never share your passwords.
Yeah, Netflix, the people that says, hey, sharing passwords, it's caring back in 2017. And then 2022,
that aged well,
whoa, guys, hey, this is your fault that we're losing money.
They just want you to care less.
Yeah. You can only care for one extra person.
Dude, they spend billions of dollars on new programming every year, and it makes
$4
no
billion,
sense.
right?
But then they cancel
it's like 18 billion. And yeah, they cancel because it's not good.
I've honestly gotten to the point where I don't want to watch a new Netflix show
until
even
it's
if
at
I'm
least
interested.
2 or 3 seasons in.
Because I'll watch it and I'll be like, oh, that one's actually surprisingly
And
good,
cancel.
and it's gone.
No, you got to watch it anyway. I mean, if it's good, even if it's just one season.
Meanwhile, we're
nothing
getting a
more than a
second season
cliffhanger.
of Tiger King.
Oh, God.
I don't know, and it's not even like the actual people. They're like actors.
Who are like actors?
Like so, like the new quote unquote Tiger King thing is people portraying.
No, that's on Peacock.
Right.
Yeah, he's talking about season 2 of Tiger King on Netflix, which is just the continuation of the documentary.
It's gonna focus on Carol Baskin.
Yeah, and then also talk about whatever his name is. His name Joe?
Joe Exotic.
Yeah,
Joe
that's right.
Exotic.
About his attempts to get out of prison. But yeah,
Escape.
there's a show on Peacock with the girl from SNL.
He's gonna ride a tiger out.
But yeah, they're representing those characters to try to show you, and it's getting horrible reviews. Like, it's not going to last.
Anyway, back to Star Trek.
See, we're talking about things that are more important than Star Trek.
Oh,
Joe
yeah.
Exotic.
Yeah. So you watched all 3 movies again, you said,
Yeah,
right?
just recently.
Which one's your favorite?
The first one,
Yeah.
but with the second one coming in very close afterwards. I thought Benedict Cumberbatch did a great job as Khan, and the fact that they didn't kill him off. If they do a 4th movie, I'd love to see him back, and more of his crew wake up. But I'd be interested to see how they do it. I also had the issue.
Easter egg of Khan in Picard, by the way.
I should what?
Spoiler alert.
Oh, I haven't gotten that far in season 2 yet.
See, now you've ruined it for him.
So Adam Sung, the doctor, is that the guy that actually created Data?
Yeah, is it Adam though? I feel like
So,
you just
well, the
made
guy-
up that first name.
Well, the guy,
Yeah, Sung. Yeah.
well, so Dr. Sung. Well,
Yeah.
in the show they refer to him as Adam Sung,
Oh, okay.
but it's Dr. Sung. How does he live 400 years to create Data? They jump back in time to 2024 and go through their timeline, their adventure in 2024, but they meet Adam Sung like as he's doing genetic experiments before he's created Data and Data's brother, or whatever his name is.
I can't remember. It's the first season of Picard. You see Dr. Sung, and I can't remember if they
But that is during that's the 25th century, right?
I think so. I don't know.
How does he live 400 years?
I don't know. I'd
Time
have to
travel.
go back and look. He might make himself into an android or something. Who knows?
Well, okay. Either way, short story short, they have they're at the end of Picard, and he pulls out a file, and it's called Project Con. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I'm assuming that
They called it Project Con.
yeah, he pulls out a file. It's like confidential, and it says Project Con.
Oh, that's
Did
kind of
Picard
lame.
ever deal with Khan?
No.
Okay, so that's their little nod to that then.
Well, Picard doesn't have anything to do with that portion of it. Like, he interacts with Sung. Is it Sung, right?
Yeah, Dr. Sung.
All during the second season of Picard. But then at the end of the season, you kind of see this like Khan reference, which
Well, I guess my point was it's the original series that deals with Khan, and the original movies. I think there's even one called Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
yes, they're at the Khan.
Khan is in the first movie and the second movie.
Okay, so in my mind, it would be really good if he came back for the 4th in the reboot movies, especially if he could hold 2 movies in the old series. Why not hold 2 movies? In
So,
this?
interestingly, you know how the new movies changed timelines and stuff?
Yes.
So, in the movie with Khan, with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yep.
Um,
Into the Darkness.
Into Darkness.
Into darkness.
Kirk sacrifices himself.
But he doesn't.
I know.
It annoys the
But
piss out of me.
in the original movies, Spock sacrifices himself, and you hear Kirk yell like "Khan."
Yeah.
And so
And
in
then
this,
they did
they
the
flipped it
reverse.
around. Yeah.
Did somebody die in those movies when they finally defeated him? Because
So Spock.
Nimoy says that when
Like,
he's
he had to
playing
give
the
up
older
everything.
Spock, says that he had to, at great cost, they defeated Khan, which makes it sound like someone's going to die, which is foreshadowing of somebody dying, and then it's a big, just kidding, we saved you, where it would have been so much better for his character if he would have died. I know it's James T. Kirk, and you can't really kill him off if you're going to do more movies, but for the character's arc over those 2 movies, him dying there would have been perfect.
So Spock does die, and they have like a funeral for him. And then in the 3rd movie, The Search for Spock, I need to rewatch because I can't remember how he comes back to life. But he's like reborn, like he's a kid again, and then he grows back into a man.
Oh.
Cloning.
It's very weird.
Right,
I
I
don't think
would-
it's cloning.
I don't know what else it would be.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I'll point out that was 4 years before we were born as well, when that movie came out.
You can tell when you watch them. The 4th movie, however, they go back in time to like the 20th century, and they go to an aquarium.
Oh, they don't do too much with time travel, by the way.
Yeah. But they don't really change that much.
It's like everything is so hard to follow.
Although for some reason they find themselves in an aquarium, and Kirk's like walking around in the aquarium, and Spock jumps in and like mind melds with a whale. and then they bring the whale to the future. It's really weird.
So speaking of the mind meld, in the movie, the second one of the reboot with Benedict Cumberbatch as Khan, Spock in that one, our Spock, which is Zachary Quinto, does the mind meld with Pike when he's dying. Doesn't that feel like an invasion? Like he wants to feel what he's feeling when he's dying.
Well, so he's taking his memories so he'll live on. Is the Vulcan
It did not
notion.
say that. It just said I felt the only time I've ever felt this before is when my planet blew up, but it literally just felt like an invasion of privacy.
Yeah, you're supposed to only mind meld with like a willing partner, and that you're not really supposed to mind meld with humans like in Vulcan tradition.
Okay, well, you say that in Picard, he meets this government agent who the whole reason he's chasing Picard during the second season is because he saw two Vulcans in the woods and he was running away from them, and then the Vulcan tried to mind meld him to make him forget that he saw them.
Is that a thing?
Apparently.
I guess it could be.
No. I guess my question is, was that a thing? Not is it a thing now? Like, if we talk about Star Wars, they basically add things in each movie and go, no, that was supposed to happen in the other movies too.
There's been
But
a
is
lot
that
of like
something-
weird stuff with Vulcan mind melds. It doesn't surprise me that they could make
Hang on.
somebody's.
I
It's actually
love
a
how you're
Vulcan
saying
mind meld
Vulcan
now.
mind meld, and then you're doing
Well, that's because they put their hands in.
I understand,
No, it's
but
like
you're just
this.
talking about
yeah, that's
There's
true.
three- yeah,
It's
three
not
fingers.
that.
But
it's
you're
just-
doing the
yeah,
live long
yeah.
and
Right, it's
prosper
three
thing.
fingers, not
It's
five.
three fingers.
remember.
Yeah, sorry. But like in Enterprise, there's the first officer's name is T'Pol. She mind melds with another Vulcan and gets like basically an STD from the mind
Mind
meld.
meld.
I mean, to be
Yeah.
fair, we've all been there.
Well, yeah. But anyway, so like there's been a lot of weird inconsistencies, but just like I don't know. Mind melds don't seem to be like a one-all.
There's no generic.
Yeah, there's no like all you can do is this. It's like all you can do is this until you realize
Right.
that they can also do
It's
that.
the Force, right? So
Yeah.
you can just keep throwing in new like
Force
Jedi.
powers.
Yeah, right.
So going back to the originals or not the originals, but the newer movies that I just watched again, I had a couple questions, and I don't know when's the last time. I know you just watched the third one again. I don't know if you remember the first two, or when's the last time you watched any of the newer reboot movies.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
So I just watched the third one, but I watched the first and the second one probably in the last year. So.
Okay. So
do my best.
I have a question. when Kirk dies,
Yeah.
and they need Khan's blood to revive him.
Yeah.
Why is Khan's blood the only special blood? They have 72 other people just like Khan from those tubes. Why isn't any of their blood special? Why is his blood special when they're all the same type of people? They're his people.
Do they have access to the tubes at that point?
Yes. They're
Then
all
I don't
sitting
know
there.
because it should be any of their blood.
Okay. Yeah, they're all just sitting there because it was the lie that they put them back in the
It could be a
torpedoes.
timing thing though, because they're on ice
Yeah.
and they need fresh blood,
I guess.
and he's up and about. I don't know.
Maybe we thaw them out a little bit.
I know, but I mean, maybe they need it in like because I seem to remember it was like a rush.
It's
They-
clearly to continue the plot.
yeah.
Well, sure. Well, if you have to do something to continue the plot, I consider that a plot hole. That's also the same. That's the movie with Nero, right? Nero is the first villain. Yes,
the
'cause he
the first movie, not the one with Khan.
right in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
first
yeah,
one.
yeah.
So he comes back and does this whole thing to try to take the red matter and try to kill Spock and kill Spock's home
Planet. Yep.
world.
Vulcan.
Why not just take the red matter, go back to his home world, and tell them, hey, in X amount of years, you guys are going to have this supernova. Use this red matter to save yourselves. Fixed. Done.
So I don't have a good answer, but the answer I'll give is that he's a Romulan, and they're basically from the same species as Vulcans, but they've separated, and Vulcans repress their emotions.
They're in the
and
same
Romulans don't. So Romulans have like an awful temper. So revenge might be outweighing like his
But you're
logic
talking about
there.
like 30 years of sitting there
I'm just
waiting.
saying that's
Nobody went, hey, now that we've got this, maybe we'll
I
do
didn't say it was a
this."
good explanation. I just said that's the one I got.
Vulcan and Romulus are in the same star system of kinds, right?
I don't really know where they're located. I know that Romulans and Vulcans are the same species, essentially, just like with variations because they've lived apart for so long.
With the movies, and I think it's not necessarily a Star Trek problem, it's a movie problem with cliches. And if I didn't just binge watch 3 movies in 2 days, I probably wouldn't have noticed. But I also came across with Star Trek, there's always a point where somebody is running away and then they're running in a random direction and they just run into somebody who hasn't been introduced yet that saves them. In the first one, Kirk is running away and the old generation Spock saves him from that creature running at him in the ice. The second one has Khan saves Kirk, Spock, and Uhura just out of nowhere while they're almost dying to Klingons.
Yeah.
And then in the third one, the white-faced girl, it's Jalen?
I don't know. I hated her character.
Yeah. So apparently that was supposed to be Jennifer Lawrence. Or you pronounce it J-Law. Because that's why her name was J-Law, because it was supposed to be for Jennifer Lawrence, and they just kept the name when she couldn't do the movie, just spelled it differently.
Oh.
But yeah, but she just randomly saves
It's a really
Scotty.
odd way to homage.
Yeah, she was supposed to do the movie, and then they were just like, we like the name, we're gonna keep it. We'll just change the name.
Spelling. We don't like the actor.
Well, she backed out. She ends up saving Scotty out of nowhere, like just happens to be in the right place at the right time.
I was surprised because I know I mentioned I didn't like that one, but I rewatched it. It wasn't as bad as I remembered.
It's still the worst one out of the 3.
Yeah. But it's definitely watchable and actually decent. Like, I enjoyed watching it this time.
I also had an issue with...
Better or worse than Doctor Strange?
Better than Doctor Strange.
Disagree. It's worse than Doctor Strange.
Well, you can be wrong. That's okay. That's your prerogative.
And then in the third one, Beyond, right? It's called Beyond.
Yeah, the third one is Beyond.
Of the reboot. We have that Kroll just randomly turns himself back into a human at the end, which is Idris Elba.
So I think that's because he, like, you see him absorb energy or something from people.
But
and
you
that's
don't see him absorb anybody else when he's in that position.
No, but my point is he absorbs energy from people. It turns him into that creature, that other species. And then as that energy lessens, he gets weaker and he starts to revert back to human. So as he's like running around, he's reverting back and he's not in a place to absorb whatever the heck it is from people.
Okay. And then there's a part at the end where there's the gravitational pull with all the shattered glass and he just jumps into it to go with the gravitational pull and get spun around. But there's thousands of glass shards there. Nobody gets cut. Nobody gets nothing. Everybody's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's safety glass, obviously.
And then the one spot in the city that has to do with oxygen for this giant city in space. No security. No nothing. There's nothing there. Nobody guarding it. Nobody protecting it. You can just get there.
Well, you gotta float through shards of glass to get there.
Well,
so
there weren't shards of glass there to begin with.
I know, I'm just kidding.
But it just, there was a few things during that movie I was just like, well, that doesn't make sense, and that doesn't make sense. But I think, again, if you do it with most movies, as we discussed last week with Doctor Strange, you're going to come up with some plot holes where you go, wait, why did this happen? And sometimes, as Mike said, it's just to further the plot of the movie, which, to me, just comes off as lazy.
Yep.
So have either one of you delved into Discovery?
Have I?
Yeah, have you seen any of the new season?
I think I'm through. I think I finished season 2. The last thing I saw is like they were still in the future, but I lost.
They're still in the future.
I lost interest.
Which future are they in? The present, or are they in the future?
They're in the one where like they hunted down and found the remnant of the Federation.
Okay. Yeah. So have you seen where they've gotten back with the rest of the Federation yet?
Where they joined with the remnant? Yeah.
So I do like the fact that... So I like parts of Discovery that give you things that are super, super futuristic. Like when you originally watch Next Generation, you see transporters, and obviously you see that in like the original Star Trek, but things that make Star Trek, make it unique. Like watching in Discovery, you see the jump drive, or not jump drive, but
spore drive.
Spore drive, yeah. I mean, you see like future tech that.
Well, let's pause there for a second. KJ, they travel around space using fungi.
A mycelial network.
Yeah, of spores.
Oh God, I've become less entertained now.
So
Good job, guys.
Well, if you actually look into it,
I'm gonna look into running a ship on fungi.
To be fair,
Well,
if
no,
you
like,
eat
to be
mushrooms,
fair.
you will travel in space.
And I'm sure there is some scientific basis behind it.
But that's the one thing. The reason I like Star Trek is they do try their best to like take science into account, and not only that, but they've created things like iPads and stuff on the old series. The idea is straight out of the original series. They see them with a little iPad thing, and all of a sudden Apple's making an iPad.
Well, I don't know.
All right, well, so whoever's listening to this, I want a replicator right now.
Yeah,
I want to be able to make a Big Mac whenever I want.
well, it's a replicator for the food, I'll grant you, but like, it's not that different from a 3D printer.
An organic food 3D printer.
I would like that too.
Well, they are working on some stuff like that.
Yeah,
Let's get on it.
Well, I mean, they are.
I mean, they could have bypassed the iPad and gone right to the replicator.
Even the like description of how they create a warp bubble to travel is like an area of study right now among scientists.
Right, you create an area of space that's shorter in front of the ship and longer behind it, which makes you travel faster than...
It's like surfing a wave.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be cool if we could actually do it. Otherwise, it's basically
And
just
I do like in the movies where you actually get to see the warp drive, and it's like a nuclear, much more like present day adaptation of something that's very future tech. Like you can see the nuclear symbol, warning symbols on it.
Yeah, that was in the newer J.J. Abrams movies.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it seemed to be more based in our reality.
right, instead of like the warp core on Next Generation, which just looks like it's like the guy from Power Rangers. His little
Zordon?
tube. The Zordon
yeah.
tube.
Yeah.
Well, I think, the Next Generation, how many years is that supposed to be after the regular
Oh, I don't
series?
know. I couldn't tell you.
Also, who can explain to me star dates?
It's a year.
Year of what? And there's a point in it?
I think, yeah.
What's the point for? Is that a month? Is that a day?
I don't know. I'm not that nerdy, I guess.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
I figured you'd have it.
That's a good question. We're going to have to research this.
I mean, I love Star Trek, but I also am not one to dig into details. Like, I know people will, like, get blueprints for the ships and be like, oh, yeah. And
God, what is it? Galaxy Quest.
Yeah,
Is
Galaxy
one of my
Quest.
favorite
I know
movies.
there's people like that, but
Yeah.
to me, it's like, I just appreciate the story. I love Next Generation. Like, they would do things like go into the projector room and like have these kind of old timey scenes because Patrick Stewart's character Picard really liked like old PI novels and stuff, so they would do like they do the hollow projector rooms.
But you were fine with, I know we talked about it briefly earlier, but like of the episodic, where technically something you watched last week didn't really matter this week.
Well, when you watch a movie, how long is a movie?
2 hours.
Okay, so I watch an episode of Star Trek Next
22
Generation.
minutes.
Next Generation's not 22 minutes. It's an hour.
The original one is like 22 minutes. They're
Okay.
30-minute shows.
It's not my favorite for a reason.
Okay.
But when you have an hour, to me, it's like you can call it episodic, but it's basically like its own movie. And then the other ones that tie in sometimes are basically just like sequels to that movie I watched.
Sure, but you look at like Mandalorian, which is either 8, 10, 12 episodes of almost an hour each. So you watch one full season, you got 12 hours worth of content.
But there's a reason that there are only 8, 10 episodes and not 22, 23 episodes like these shows are. You couldn't make a 23 episode non-episodic show.
I get that. That was my point. You enjoy the episodic part of it.
I enjoy both. It's just I think Next Generation does a good job because there's always the underlying mission that they have to explore. So like,
also, is it the 5-year mission that's in everything? Like I heard that in the newer movies. I heard that in Strange New Worlds. I'm pretty sure that's what one of them says in either the original show or Next Generation, where their whole point is being out in space for X amount of years because they're supposed to be exploring all these.
Well,
things.
usually they usually do a rotation, so they come back because people have families they visit and stuff like that. Yeah.
But that's always the point, is that you're out in space by yourself for X amount of years.
Other than Voyager, where they like accidentally find themselves in the Delta Quadrant, which would take them their lifetime to get back. Or maybe not their lifetime, but a long time.
It takes them like, what, 30 years to get back?
Something
between
like that,
the first and last episode.
And then along the way, they try to figure out ways to like speed it up.
Which they missed their opportunity at like episode 3.
Yeah.
Just gone.
Episode 3, they have like an option to do it, and they're like, no, that's not like moral to do that or something. I can't remember what it is. And so instead they're like, well, I guess we won't see our families ever again.
Yeah, instead of like saving some people on a planet, the Ferengi go through the little wormhole.
Yeah.
Is this like Gilligan's Island, where they make a radio and then Gilligan ruins it?
Pretty much.
All right. And then you just keep
Ferengi
going
or Gilligan in this scenario, I guess.
So if you guys, your favorite is for TV shows?
Series, Next Generation.
And yours?
Same.
Yeah, okay. And then for movies, I don't know, have you seen the original movies, or have you only seen the Next Generation movies?
See, I have, but it's been a long, long time.
Okay.
Like, the last time I saw the original Star Trek was on VHS.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. And what's your favorite from the original series movies?
The original series cast, you mean?
Yeah.
Probably Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan was a good one.
Although the whale one...
Just because it's a whale and it's super weird?
Yeah. And then Next Generation is definitely First Contact. And then, I guess of the new movies, I already said it'd probably be the first one. But
you didn't like Nemesis?
I liked Nemesis, but I just love I like stuff where you get to see what it was like before. You kind of get to see the beginning. Because if you think about it, the original series was the first Star Trek thing, and it takes place way after. They've already discovered a lot of these races before. Right. It's new to us as a viewer, but in their universe, it's not all new to them. So that's why I liked Enterprise, even though a lot of people didn't, is they didn't have like sophisticated shields on their ship. They had like a thick hull, and they didn't have like all these contacts throughout the galaxy. The Federation didn't even exist. It was just them, and the Vulcans were like basically showing them how to build their ship correctly.
Right, and you see them actually meet the Vulcans in First Contact. That's the first contact is with the Vulcans.
Yep.
And that was by accident.
Yeah.
The Vulcans just happened to be traveling near the solar system, and they caught the warp drive signature.
So besides for the newer movies, have you guys seen any of these in theater? Because like Insurrection, I doubt you saw Generations, because we would have been.
I was gonna say I don't think I saw.
First Contact, you would have been 8.
Was Nemesis in theaters?
2002.
And it was in theaters.
Yes, I remember that one because my mom went to see that.
I think I saw Nemesis in theaters with my brother, if I remember right.
Okay, that was one of those times where we went to the theater and she went into a movie and we went into a different movie because it didn't appeal to any of us that went.
Yeah, that one was actually pretty good. It was much more like same pace and style as these newer movies are, so you might have actually liked that one.
Yeah.
Just didn't appeal to me back then. I was 14.
And Tom Hardy plays the villain, so.
Yeah, back then that meant nothing.
No, I know. I'm just saying now it might be worth giving a watch if you like the new ones.
God, how old was he in 2002?
He was definitely young. I mean, he's supposed to be a younger clone of Picard in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but not like a kid. I mean, he looks like he might be 20.
And you've seen the newer movies, just not for a while. What's your favorite one out of the newer movies?
Probably the first one.
Yeah, it's just called Star Trek.
Yeah.
They're very original when they reboot some movies sometimes.
So, the other thing I was just remembering is Star Trek 5, I think, is Undiscovered Country.
That's 6.
Oh, okay. What's 5
is
called?
Final Frontier.
Oh, and I was thinking of 5, I think, then. I think 5 is when they meet like God, basically.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I was trying to remember. I was like, I know they meet some omnipotent being on like the edge of space. I think it's 5.
Yeah,
Final
6
Frontier.
is the Undiscovered Country.
Yeah, I don't think it was that one. Although you would think that would be the last one. How do you kind of top that? We met God. Although it's not like the first time. There's been other episodes of even other shows where they meet like a living planet or like some being that they can't really describe.
The Q continuum.
The Q continuum is one of them, but yeah.
I guess it's funny to me that the original series was still doing movies when the Next Generation was airing on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had 2 movies while the original series was still
not
going.
good ones.
Well, they're the
5 and 6, right? Yeah.
They talk to God, Corey.
Let me put it this way. You went from 4, where they save a whale from being back in time, and Spock...
That doesn't sound very good either.
I know. And then they made a 5th and 6th one, which were worse, so... No, I really think the original series movies, it's 1, 2, and 3 are like the decent ones, and really it's 1 and 2 are like the best ones. I think 4, I actually, if you were asking me...
Is that a Journey Home?
What?
Was that 4, a Journey Home?
I think it's called A Journey Home, right?
The Voyage Home.
The Voyage Home.
The Voyage Home.
That is like maybe my guilty pleasure favorite of the original series because I watched it. No, it's just because I watched it more when I was a kid.
That's the one that I remember watching as a kid too.
Yeah, because they come back to 20th century. It's a little bit less, I don't know. I just remember watching it and being entertained.
So that is Picard season 2.
Well, I'll have to watch that.
They go back to 2024. Most of Picard season 2 is in our time. Or I say 2024. So
yeah, I think the last episode I saw, it was the first one where they came back in time to like.
But you delve into what makes Picard. Like, I mean, I understand that that's the name of the show.
Earl Grey tea.
Yeah, exactly. They do say that.
Yeah,
I understand that's the name of the show, but they really they dig deep into, Picard's very early years, like when he's a kid. You find out about his parents, different things like that. So
yeah.
So with all the series that we have, how many are you guys? So we have 3 new ones that are airing currently, besides for any of the animated stuff. How many of them are you gonna keep watching? Are you going to watch Picard now because he said something?
No. I always was going to watch Picard. It's just I got distracted with other things and lost track of it. But I'm halfway, like a couple episodes into season 2, so I'll finish that. Discovery is the one that I cared the least about, but I'll still go watch it at some point. What?
That has 4 seasons.
It's going into its 4th, right?
The 4th is out.
Yeah,
and then the 5th one is airing next year.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah.
I felt it was done. Like, I thought after season 4...
they ordered a 10-episode 5th season.
Because, the ending...
You don't know where they're going to go?
No, the ending just seems very final.
I like Saru. That's my favorite character.
I like him as a character. I hate almost everything about him. His fingers look like... They're very phallic, I should say.
Yeah.
And he has,
I hate everything about him. It's our friendship.
I do. He's just such an awkward character. I understand, he's an alien. But they can't all be humanoid to the T.
Oh, what's her name? Georgia? Is that
the captain?
The original captain, and then they bring an evil version of her or something. Yeah, I like
from
her.
the other universe, the mirror universe.
Yep.
So are you still watching all of them? Is that your plan, Mike?
Oh yeah, I've watched all the new stuff.
So if they come out with another new show, you guys will pick it up and watch it?
Probably.
Yeah.
Unless it's Voyager 2.
So there's
I'll watch the shit out of that.
So there's talk about 2 different new movies releasing next year. One is supposed to be with the reboot cast if they can come to contract terms, which is it's already got a set release date for December of 2023, even though they haven't even signed a contract yet. They haven't started filming yet. They haven't done anything, but they have a release date of December 2023. And then there's supposed to be another movie done with Star Trek that has nothing to do with the reboot series that I think is supposed to debut on Paramount Plus in June of 2023.
Which is what series?
No, a movie.
Oh, straight to
Paramount Plus.
That's weird.
Well, they do that with some things nowadays. I don't think it's going to be this big budget movie like a J.J. Abrams type of movie would be. But apparently they have an interesting story. They want to do it. It's been slated for June 2023.
Was it, oh God, Pulp Fiction director Quentin Tarantino.
He backed out of it. He didn't want to do it again.
I read what his idea was for a movie, and it sounded like off the rails kind of for Star Trek.
That doesn't necessarily mean it. There was a whale that they saved. They talked to God, but his idea was off the rails.
Yep.
How much more can you be off the rails?
I mean, his movies are, I don't want to say very dark, but I feel like
they're
bloody,
violent.
graphic.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of Star Trek would be very niche.
Right. But if it's just his idea and he doesn't write it, if he just has a say in it, it might be a little bit different.
Well, I think he was going to direct it.
Yeah, and then he backed out of that.
Yeah.
Like, imagine like a No Country for Old Men Star Trek.
That's not him.
Isn't that Quentin Tarantino?
Not No Country for Old Men, no.
Once, yeah. No. Pulp Fiction. I know that was him.
Ethan Coen. Yeah, it's the Coens.
Coen brothers. Yeah, that's right.
Did that.
Yep. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm actually really excited. I know it doesn't sound like either of you guys liked Strange New Worlds, but I've liked the direction it's continuing to go in. I really like the third episode. It is episodic, so you're not going to like it ever if that's a problem for you, but KJ. I'm excited for it. It kind of brings me back to watching Next Generation when I was a kid. So
if I watched those shows back then, maybe it'd do the same for me, but with no connection to it at all. I
just hope it's not all 100% like character development. I feel like they really pushed Ahora's character development in episode 2.
Yeah.
Like a little bit overboard, like almost preachy.
Didn't they do that in the other ones? Like where there are certain episodes that were kind of centered around somebody where you either got a little bit of their backstory or
but
they at least did something significant in the episode.
They at least like start out like as a whole crew, like in Voyager, again, which you don't like. Like you see like the whole ship going into the Delta Quadrant. You don't really delve into each individual's like episode per se until like later on once you've developed.
Oh, so your issue is that it's too soon.
Right off the bat, would have been fine. Like right off the bat, they just really centered on one character.
Do you think that's because everybody knows who she is or is supposed to?
Probably.
If it was a brand new character, maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd let you get invested. But if you're watching the show, most likely you're already invested. So you're trying to find out more about her.
Sure.
That's the only thing I can think, because if it's a brand new character, maybe they wouldn't do it. Like, if it was just a brand new show, had nothing to do with any of the other Star Treks, would they do that? I don't know.
That's one of the reasons I think they are doing it that way, because you have this character that's pretty established. If you're just going to regurgitate her as a character, then it's not adding anything new content-wise. So instead what they do is, we're going to tell you about her backstory, about, like, why she like learned languages, because she grew up in Africa and had to learn different tribal languages so she could speak to everybody, and that's why language is so important to her. All things I didn't know from watching the original series movies.
I did like everybody's faces, the acting of it, because I watched like 5 minutes of the second episode where she says how many languages she speaks, because he only thought it was like 12 or something, and she's like, it's actually like 37.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, Christ.
Show off.
Yeah. So for somewhat closing thoughts for Star Trek, when you have to compare it to other movies that have trilogies or that have gone on for 10, 20, because this is spanning 30, 40 years now, with the amount of TV shows and movies they've done, where do you put it in timeline with not timeline, I won't say timeline.
All over the place. The timeline is all over the place. So
what do you mean? As far as a franchise, where do I put it against like Star Wars?
Against a Star Wars, an MCU, movies that
way below Star Wars.
Well, yes, but movies that have so much either fandom or have just been spanning all these years and they just keep going.
So Star Wars, I love Star Wars, but I also love Star Trek. It's not one or the other for me. The difference I see is Star Trek is smart, and Star Wars, it's not dumb, but it's less thought out.
I'm just gonna take that one clip. That's the only thing that's gonna be posted.
Get everybody to hate me.
Star Trek is more, it feels to me cleaner, whereas Star Wars is very gritty. And I mean,
I just don't think Star Wars is necessarily thought out in like the science of how these things exist.
Well, it's also not supposed to be in our world. Star Trek is supposed to be in our world.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It feels more realistic to me, and Star Wars feels more like space fantasy.
Which is what it's supposed to be.
I know.
Because it's in a galaxy far, far away.
That's the difference, though. So, like, if you can appreciate, like, the more trying to make things real and explain the science of it, then Star Trek's entertaining. If you're just looking for a straight entertainment value without, like, picking apart every little scientific like... explosions don't happen in space like that is like the biggest one people say about Star Wars.
Can't they say that about Star Trek too?
They don't do it like that in Star Trek.
They do some explosions.
Yeah, not often.
Inside the shields.
Yeah. They have justifications for it.
Wouldn't the shield soon deplete? Because how else is anything getting through? If you're hitting it and the shield depletes and then it blows up, the shield's gone.
Science.
So
Space God.
Q.
Yeah.
Where's this whale again? So where are you like ranking it if you had to?
Star Wars and Star Trek are almost interchangeable for me in terms of like my favorite franchises.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably lean. It's weird because it just depends. Different times in my life,
Okay,
I've liked
what
Star
if we
Wars
just made you sit down? You have to watch it for the rest of your life. What are you watching?
Which one?
No. Oh, yes, of Star Trek or Star Wars.
Well, Star Trek, because there's so much more of it.
There is a lot
Yeah,
more. However, Star Wars keeps coming out with new stuff, too.
Yeah, but it's bad.
Well,
Like,
The Mandalorian isn't bad.
sure, but I mean the movies are
that's
junk.
fair.
Like this new sequel was bad. That's the one thing. Like I guess Star Trek has always, even Voyager, which I'm not a huge fan of, I could find entertainment in it. There's been stuff of Star Wars which was just awful. Like the new sequel trilogy was just not good.
The first one had promise.
The first one only had promise though because it was the original Star Wars movie.
I agree, but that's not a bad thing to reintroduce characters or reintroduce the fans to these characters.
It was safe.
In the same, agreed, but then that's from there, you earn that trust, and then you go in the different direction, which is what they should have done. They just didn't.
It's like they had two, like they had it on the spectrum, and you have like, we could play it really safe and make a replica of New Hope. And then on the other side, we can do this crazy Last Jedi storyline. And instead of finding a happy medium for both movies, they just did both ends of the spectrum. And that's why it clashed so bad. If you liked the first one, you were going to hate the second one.
See, I like the second one. Well, we'll get into Star Wars later.
Yeah, we'll get into it. Yeah.
So for you're
talking about the first one, you mean episode 7?
Yes.
Okay, so not the first one.
Well, yeah.
Well, Force Awakens.
Well, technically,
Phantom Menace.
Which one is the first one? Is going to say Phantom Menace?
Episode 7 is just a complete ripoff of A New Hope.
A New Hope.
That's
I know.
what
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We got to destroy the Death Star. That's a planet now.
It's even bigger.
Well,
that's no moon.
Instead of moon, it's a whole planet.
Well, that's what they did in the first one, and then again in the third one.
I would have paid them.
Fourth and the sixth.
I would have paid $1,000 if they had worked the line in that was, instead of "that's no moon," they said "that's no planet." That's because that's exactly when I was like, "Oh, so it's a Death Star planet." I was waiting for somebody to say that.
It is a planet, though. You can't just say, "Oh, that's no planet." It is a planet.
That's no regular planet. That's a Death Star.
Or it's
so bad.
Shouldn't it be a Death Planet, not a Death Star?
Yeah, just awful.
Well, the Death Star is not a star either.
Well, that's fair. I'll give you that.
All
right, enough about Star Wars.
Moon unit.
So what about you, Mike? Where do you have it in, I guess, placement of franchises that have been around for a long time, that have a lot of movie, TV shows, fandom?
So I like Star Wars more in the fact that it is more fantasy than Star Trek. However, I like the tech of Star Trek more than I like that of Star Wars.
Yeah, say that 10 times fast.
Yeah. So, like the ships in Star Trek are more appealing. Like they have the long nacelles. They're very sleek. They're very clean on the inside. They have the transporters. The tech of Star Trek just seems more appealing to me, but I like the open, broad fantasy of Star Wars more. And I grew up with Star Wars, watching more of that than I did Star Trek. I never really watched any of the early shows or movies or anything like that. I watched them later on, but...
So KJ's asking the wrong question. What it really comes down to is you can have the Millennium Falcon or you can have the U.S. Enterprise.
Enterprise all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really though, I'm surprised you said that.
I don't like the Millennium Falcon. I like Slave One more than I like the Millennium Falcon.
Okay, so Slave One, or you mean Boba Fett starship?
Yeah. Copyright.
That's what it's called now. So, but you like that more than the Enterprise? Somebody says, "Here's the keys to one of them. Which are you taking?"
So
he's taking
again.
both.
You got to pick the Enterprise because it's huge.
Not to mention, you got the holodeck.
Right.
You have a food replicator.
The tech of Star Trek is better than Star Wars. I have no...
You won't get canceled for having a ship called Slave One? Like, I mean, it's all Enterprise all day.
I'm pretty sure if we went back through all of Star Trek, there's going to be things there you go, ooh, they probably shouldn't have done that.
So one of the things I like about Star Trek, and it goes back to that kind of 90s episodic shows, is they address things like racism, like sexism and stuff like that, and kind of and make episodes out of it, like teaching moments, which was like a big thing in 90s like sitcoms and everything.
Do you think Janeway makes 75% of Picard's pay?
Probably. Yeah.
She actually gets paid nothing in the Delta Quadrant. So.
But I was gonna say they don't even make money.
Oh, that's true,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know. And Voyager, like Janeway's 90% of the reason why I don't like Voyager.
Ugh.
That and Chakotay. I love Tuvok. I love Harry Kim. Tom Paris was great. 7 of 9. I mean,
See, I'm just hoping there are more listeners like me than you guys that just
Neelix is the Jar Jar Binks of Star Trek.
That's right. You need one.
Oh.
Without Jar Jar Binks, you can't appreciate Liam Neeson.
That is not true.
Yeah, I don't follow that.
All right, so enough of Star Trek, enough of Star Wars and all that stuff. Anybody have any clothing that they want to say before we end this thing?
If you have tried Star Trek before and you can't get into it, I do suggest the Orville because it's a good segue and it's really good. You don't have to be a Star Trek fan to like it, and I just think it's a really good show.
It's sci-fi, but modern enough to get into it.
Yeah, and one of the cool things about it is it does something Star Trek never really did, never did well, is make aliens who aren't just, bipedal and look like us with big ears.
Well, Discovery does that too, though.
Yeah, just newer ones have, and it was mostly a budget thing, but Orville's got like a gelatinous blob alien that kind of goes around, voiced by Norm Macdonald, so.
Aww.
Yeah, I know. I just realized that. I wonder what you're doing in this next season.
Good job to bring it down, Corey.
Well, there's a new season comes out in June, so I wonder what they're going to do with that character.
Well, if he's already voiced some of it, they might already still have it.
Yeah.
And just do a tribute to him. I don't have any closing things to say about this besides for watch something else. Mike,
Star Wars.
All right, so that's going to do it for us and Talking Nerdy in the Bedroom. Next week, we will be talking about Halo. No, you don't need to do the
Live long and prosper.
Oh my God.
Yeah.